What's going on, guys? Welcome back. This is Stefan here from App Stuff, and this is the ultimate SwiftUI Bootcamp. In our last video, we went over how to work with for each loops in SwiftUI. In this video, we're going to be going over how to work with ScrollViews. So if you guys look back at the loops tutorial we just did, we have this list of users, but you notice that it's not a scrollable list. And you could imagine if that list grew to say like 50 or 100 users, we currently don't have the ability to scroll through that list. So let's hop over to this simulator and see what we have here. So this is a scrollable list of restaurants. Oops, very similar to what you would see in something like UberEats. So we're going to be combining for each loops and ScrollViews to achieve this effect here. And we're actually going to be building this in this video. So get super excited for that, guys. Let's go ahead and get started with our ScrollViews. So we're going to go over to our project navigator here, and we're going to create a new file. So let's see, new file, and it's going to be a SwiftUI view, and I'm going to call this ScrollView tutorial. So just go ahead and make sure your preview is connected, guys, and we're going to go ahead and implement a super simple example of a scroll view now. So just go ahead and replace this text with scroll view. And we're going to bring back our for each loop. So we're going to say for each. And the autocomplete doesn't always work for some reason. So I'm going to just go ahead and type it out manually. Say 0 up to 20. So this is going to create 20 items for me. Say ID \self. Open up a set of curly brackets and then say index in. And just hit enter. So this is what your for each loop should look like right now. And then you guys are just going to create a rectangle and give it a frame of 100. Frame with height alignment 100 by 100. And the alignment we're just going to delete. So you should just see this big vertical list of rectangles showing up. And if we just sort of click on one of the brackets of either the scroll view or the for each loop, click on the ending for each loop bracket that we have on line 16. And you guys can see that this frame extends past the bounds of the screen right here, which means that the content goes past what we see on the screen. So let's see what happens if we go up to this menu bar up here and hit play. We'll actually be able to hold down the mouse on this list of rectangles and move it, and it will actually scroll that list of rectangles that we have. So that's how easy it is to implement a scroll view, guys. Once again, make sure you're clicking within this rectangle view and just hold down your mouse click or your trackpad click and move your finger or your mouse, and you can just scroll through that list of rectangles there. So that's really, really cool. And it's super simple, right? All we had to do was embed this for each loop inside of a scroll view. So when I say embed something inside of something else, it just means that, look, we have these scroll view brackets here. And within that scroll view bracket, we have this for each loop. So that means the for each loop is inside of this scroll view. So that's as simple as it is to create a scroll view, and we can see that this is a vertically scrollable list. What if we wanted to create a horizontally scrollable list of items? So scroll view defaults to a vertical axis. If we want to customize that, we can just open up the parenthesis next to our scroll view here and say dot horizontal, and that's going to change the scroll view axis to horizontal. And you guys will notice that now we can scroll left and right, but this stuff is still in this vertical alignment, right? So if we wanted to change that, we can just wrap this for each loop inside of an H-stack. So just hold down the command key and click and say embed in H-stack. And now you guys are going to see that this is a horizontally scrollable list of items, which is really, really cool, right? And you guys will notice that the indicator is showing up. Like you can see that little scrolling indicator down at the bottom. We can also turn that off. We can say shows indicator, and you could say false. And you guys will notice now that the indicator doesn't show up. If I change it to true, and when I say indicator, guys, I mean that little scroll bar. now we can see that the indicator is showing back up there. So they also give us the capability to turn that on and off. It by default, it's set to on, or this property is set to true. Now, if we want to change this back to a vertically scrollable list, all we have to do is change our axis to .vertical and then change this HStack to VStack. And you guys technically don't have to have this VStack there, because the default behavior of a scroll view is to place everything in a vertical stack. But just to make things clearer, I think it's a good idea to place it in a VStack. And if you ever want to change it out to an HStack, it's pretty simple. You just know you have to change this from vertical to horizontal and this stack to an HStack. And then we have this vertically scrollable list. And then, you know, to go back to that, we just go, a scroll view is a vertical scroll view, and this is a VStack. And that's looking good. So this is where the fun stuff starts, guys. I want us to see if we can now build out this UberEats user interface using all of the stuff we've learned up to this point in the bootcamp. So this is going to require us to combine a bunch of different stuff that we've learned so far to see if we can build this final product here. So we're going to be using scroll views, for each loop, spacers, padding, stacks, all of that stuff to see if we can build this out. And it's going to be super, super exciting. So let's see if we can do it. So I'm going to just adjust my window size here and keep this preview up so that we can see if what we're building matches this final product here. So let's start by adding this text up at the top, guys. So this is a pretty cool technique as well, right? If we want this to be like a sticky header up at the top where we can scroll the list and see that thing sort of sticking to the top, then what we're going to do is place this scroll view inside of a VStack. So I could say embed in VStack, and then I could say text Tampa Bay .font .large title .font weight .semi bold, and then say like .padding. And let's go ahead and hit resume on our preview and see if that's showing up. And the desired effect here, guys, once again, is going to be to make that sort of header stick to the top, right? So we can see that as I scroll through, it's sticking to the top there, which is really cool. If I wanted that to be part of the scroll view, well, then guess what? All you have to do is place it inside of your scroll view and above the VStack of all these rectangles. And you guys will notice that it scrolls with my list right there. So that looks really cool. For our purposes here, I think we're going to make this a sticky header. And once again, sticky, guys, means that it sticks to the top as we scroll this list. And that's because it's inside of this VStack, and within this VStack, we have our scroll view. Okay, so now we have to see if we can create these items here. So it's going to be an image, and then below the image is going to be some information, like the name of the restaurant, some delivery information, and a restaurant rating. So let's go ahead and see if we can do that. Before we get started with that though, guys, I have imported some assets into my project. You guys can just go ahead and hop over to Google and just Google any type of food, and you can save those images and just drag them into your assets folder. Pretty similar to what we did before with like the Black Panther images and stuff like that. So just go ahead and get some food images dragged and dropped into your Xcode project, and let's hop back into the scroll view tutorial once you guys have that done. So now within this scroll view, I'm going to say for each, and this is where I'm going to create each one of my items. So it's obviously not just going to be a rectangle anymore. So I'm going to go here and replace this. I'm going to say image, and I'm going to use one of my images, Japanese tapas. And you guys can see here that this is like starting to come together, right? But the frame of the image is off, and we need to fix that. So we're going to go ahead here, and on the image guy, we're going to say .resizable, .scale to fill, .frame, and we're just going to give it a height of 100, guys, or let's say like 140. And then I'm going to say .clipped. Right, so now we can see that our images are showing up here pretty nicely. The reason I didn't have to specify a width, guys, is because this image, the original size of it was already big enough to fill the width of the screen. So I don't have to specify a width there. I can just set the height. So if you guys wanted to set a width, you know, you could say maybe like 200. It would look something like this. But for our purposes, we're not going to do that because the image is big enough to fit the size of the screen. And that looks pretty good. So we notice, guys, that we have some other information that we want to show up below this image. So as soon as you hear that word below or on top of, you know that you need to place it within a VStack. So we're going to wrap this image inside of a VStack by command clicking and say embed in VStack. And then we're going to create these two text components and then also this rating. So this guy is a little tricky as well, right? These things are in a vertical stack, and then this is horizontally aligned to that vertical stack. So the parent view is going to be an H stack because we want this stuff horizontally stacked. And within that H stack, we're going to have a vertical stack. So I'm going to say H stack. And then within that, V stack. So this is going to be info view. This is restaurant info. And then below, horizontally aligned to that will be the rating. Okay, so let's go ahead and create two text components. We can just say test and test, right? So we see these two test guys. And then here for our rating, let's go ahead and say text 4.4. Right, so this is what we want here, right? We have this vertically stacked thing, like stuff, and then next to it, we have this rating. So if we wanted to push this stuff all the way out to the edges of the frame, guys, what do we use there? We bring back our spacer guy. So I want to fill all this empty space between these two things and have each thing get pushed to the edges of the frame. So what I'm going to do is between them, place a spacer. And you guys are going to notice that it spaces everything out to fill all that empty space. So that looks really, really good. And now what we need to do is give it some padding on the horizontal edges. But we also want that on the image as well, right? So what we're going to do is on this entire VStack, right? So this VStack here represents one item in our list. We're just going to go to the end of that. So we know that this bracket right here is the end of that VStack. And we're going to say .padding .horizontal. And you guys are going to notice that it brings everything in, right? So this is really starting to come together. We just need to adjust, you know, some fonts and give this like this nice little special like circular like shape and background color and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and do it. So I'm just going to say this is haiku-tampa. And I'm going to give this a font. And I'm going to say .system size of 14, guys. .font weight, .semi-bold. So that looks pretty good. And then this other guy, we're going to change this to, let me delete that. Let's say $0.99 delivery fee 30 to 40 min. And let me just see if I can get a little bit more room there. And then I'm going to give this a font of .caption and a foreground color of .gray. So let's see how that looks. It's starting to come together. You guys notice that, however, our VStack, let me hit stop on the simulator right there. And now this will allow us to see our frames once again. So if I highlight this VStack right here, let's see, or this H-stack rather, right? You guys will notice that I want these text components to be aligned to the left of that frame. So on this VStack, what you guys can do is say alignment is .leading. And it's going to align that stuff to the edge or the left edge of my frame. And that looks really good. Then we have our spacer. And that's why we get all this space in between these components. And here, I'm gonna give this a font of I wanna say .font .caption 2. It's gonna make it nice and small. And then what we're gonna do, guys, is give it a padding of like 6. So you guys are gonna see that the frame of this guy extends a little bit, right? And then go ahead and give it a background of color and open up a set of parentheses and say .system gray 5. And you guys will notice that now after we apply the padding and then give it a background, it applies the background to the like the padded frame of that text. And then to make it circular, you're just gonna say .clip shape circle. And that's going to make it circular for us. So that looks absolutely incredible, guys. So cool. And you guys notice that we combined pretty much everything we've learned up to this point in the course to make this work. Padding, spacers, shapes, for each loops, scroll views, colors, all that stuff, right? And we're not done yet because we noticed that we want different images to be displayed in our vertically scrolling list here. And just to make sure that this is scrolling correctly, go ahead and hit play on your simulator and you guys should be able to scroll through this list really nicely, right? So that's 20 items. And we're just gonna go ahead and make each item have a different image here, guys. So this is going to bring back that concept of introducing a property the same way we did in our loops where we created this drivers array. We're gonna create an images array so that we can loop through that images array and display a couple, some different images in our list here. So I'm gonna go here and create a property up at the top. So right above your body, but within the struct, say let images equal, open up a set of square brackets, and I'm gonna say Japanese-tapas, and I'm just gonna go ahead and add all of my images here, guys. So it's gonna be tapas, ramen, poke bowl, pizza, pasta, steak, all that stuff. We're gonna go ahead and add that now. So I'm gonna say enter. Okay, so now that I've gotten all of those images typed out, those are just all the images I imported into my project, guys. Make sure the name you've typed out here matches up with exactly what you have in your assets folder. And what we're gonna do now is actually loop through this images array instead of just looping through this random range of numbers from 0 to 20. And we're gonna see how looping through that array helps us apply a different image to each item in our list. So very similar to the last video, guys, we're just going to replace this range of numbers with our images array. And let's make this parameter name a little bit more descriptive. Instead of index, we're gonna call it image, right? Because this is an array of images. Each item represents an image. So that's what this parameter name represents. As we go through this list of data, this parameter name represents what we have at each iteration of the loop. So it's just some image name, right? So if we were to hit play on this, guys, we'll notice that we no longer have 20 items in the list. We just have 6, right? So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And why is that? That's because our array has 6 items in it, and we're now doing a for each loop on that array. So before it was a range of numbers from 0 to 20. Now it's this images array, and this images array has 6 items in it, so we only get 6 items in the for each loop. So now if we want to actually get our image changed to be a different image or represent what we actually have in this array, we're going to replace this hard-coded Japanese tapas guy with our image name that we see right here. And you guys can see that that is exactly what we want to accomplish this desired effect of our completed UI. And this is looking absolutely amazing, okay? There's just a couple more things we got to do to really make it pixel perfect. So we want a little bit more spacing between our items. So on this VStack, guys, you can go here and add a spacing parameter of maybe 16. And you guys are going to notice that it's, ooh, that's not what we want actually. Sorry guys, that's the wrong VStack. So this is actually good for us to see. So like, let me go ahead and make it 32. That changes the spacing between this VStack of text between my image. So this stuff is contained within a vertical stack. But what I want to do, let's just go ahead and cut this, is apply spacing to each item, which is this VStack, right? So you can see how changing the spacing parameter on a different VStack actually applies spacing between my items now. And that looks really, really good. Let's actually go ahead and make it like 24. And this looks pretty much exactly like what we have in our completed product. The last thing we need to do is get Tampa Bay aligned to the left of the screen. So on this VStack, guys, where where Tampa Bay is contained, we can just go ahead and change the alignment here to .leading, and that's going to align Tampa Bay, or this text, to the leading edge of my frame. And that looks absolutely amazing, right? That's exactly what we set out to do in creating this UberEats menu, and that's exactly what we have in our preview right now. And we combine a bunch of different stuff we've learned up to this point in the bootcamp to make this happen. So you guys should be proud of yourselves. This looks absolutely incredible. So we are done coding in this video, guys. I'm gonna go through and give you a comprehensive breakdown of everything we just did, just to really cement these concepts in your head. If you feel like you're solid with this, you can go ahead and move on to the next video. If you want a more detailed explanation of what's going on, stick around for the next minute or two, and I'll just do a quick breakdown. So the big thing here is how we use the for loop and how we use the scroll view with the for loop, right? So like I said before, that's a really common combination that you're going to see in applications, because you're going to want to create some sort of list and you want that list to be scrollable, right? So we have our scroll view here, and within that scroll view, we have our for each loop. So this for each loop, don't worry about the images and stuff right now. Just note that at each time it goes through the loop, each iteration of the loop, it creates this cell, right? This cell represents this image and this sort of restaurant info that we have, and it creates that X amount of times. So now let's talk about how many times the for loop runs. So it's based on this images array that we have. So this is what's referred to as our data source, right? It's the source of data, and based on what that list or data source contains, that's how we create this list that we display to the user or on the application. So in this case, I have a list of images. In my loops tutorial, I had a list of drivers, right? But the concept remains exactly the same. So this is just some list of data that I have, and I'm running a for loop on that list of data. So it's going to start at Japanese tapas, then it's going to go to Japanese ramen, Japanese poke bowl, American steak, Italian pizza, Italian pasta. So that's what happens at each iteration of the loop. This image property I have here, right, where you see image in, this refers to what I have at each iteration in the loop. In this case, it's my image name, right? So at the first iteration, this guy is Japanese tapas. At the second iteration, it's Japanese ramen. The third, it's Japanese poke bowl. So that's why when I create this image here and I place this image guy right here that I have through use of my for each loop, that's why it creates a different image at each point. And it creates 6 images for me because that's how many items I have in my array. If I were to add another item, let's say I added, Black Panther -1, and I just hit enter on or tab on that to get it indented properly. Let's hit resume. You guys will notice that if I scroll to the bottom of my list now, that Black Panther is on the menu. I'm not sure you'd want to eat him. He'd probably eat you. But you guys can see how easy it is to modify my list, right? I just have to add something to this images array, and it automatically adds something to the end of that list for me. you know, I could place Black Panther like at any point in the array. Like I could place it right there, put a comma, hit resume, and you guys will notice that Black Panther is now the third item in the array, right? 0, 1, or yeah, the third. So that's how easy it is to modify your list, guys. And if I delete it and hit resume, it's just going to remove him from that list. So that's just how cool for loops are in SwiftUI. It makes our lives as programmers so much easier. It makes our code super clean and super efficient. And we also saw how to work with scroll views in this guide to make this list scrollable, and saw how to combine it with for each loop. So that's going to wrap it up for this video, guys. Thanks for sticking around. We'll see you in the next one. Stefan here from App Stuff saying peace out.